Have you ever encountered a hurdle with launching or growing your business? Listen, there are two things that run a business, the back end and your soft skills.
Telling you right now, if these aren't in place, you'll lose clients and you'll lose money. You don't want that? Well, you're in the right place.
Hey, I'm Dana.
Hey, I'm Sarah.
We're your hosts of the Entrepreneur Encounter, and we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes glance into our businesses, give you genuine feedback, tips and tricks, plus occasionally bring on guests that care about supporting you to grow your business organically and nurturing authentic relationships. Are you ready?
Welcome, entrepreneurs. We are excited to have you here today. So today we're going to discuss all things like email newsletters, how to repurpose newsletters, identify your nurture sequence, and how to use storytelling in your content. And to join us with this conversation, we have Sarah with us, a newsletter specialist and founder of the Nerdy Quill. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. I love the name, the Nerdy Quill. Obviously, it goes along definitely with the writing of the newsletters. So before we dive into today's topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do and all the great things?
Sure. I've been writing basically as long as I could hold a crayon. I was working freelance while homeschooling my kids. Our family is neurospicy, so regular school wasn't working for them. And when my kids graduated high school, cue a little bit of a midlife crisis for me because turns out kids don't want to be full-time parented after they become adults. So I needed to find something for myself to do because my chosen career of being a parent suddenly ended. While I was freelancing, I had been doing all the social media and blogs and newsletters. It was time for me to do something for myself, and I really love writing newsletters. And so I started my own business, the Nerdy Quill, and decided to focus only on newsletters because that's where my passion lies. That's what I do now is I help people connect with their audience through their newsletters.
Love that. I feel like that's something that many entrepreneurs struggle with, and I'm going to call myself out here as well. I struggle with even just being consistent because I feel like I don't know what to say in a newsletter that people want to even read or hear, depending on how they're receiving it. So with your expertise, like why is storytelling such a powerful tool for newsletters? And then how can someone who struggles with something like that connect with their audience, even like overcome that struggle?
Absolutely. So when we think of email marketing and newsletters, often we get kind of a bad taste in our mouth because everybody's gone to a store or bought something. And now all of a sudden your email inbox is full of emails that are trying to sell you something, right? And ain't nobody got time for that. And they're really annoying. But the difference between getting one of those sales emails and a newsletter is that a newsletter is full of value and should be entertaining and, stories. And that's where storytelling comes into play. And it should be really like writing a letter to a friend. Often we really overthink it. And you should be sharing, obviously, things about your business and about what you do, but also insights into your own self because you're the face of your business. So how would you write to a friend? You might talk about a thought you had or something that you did that day. I have clients that talk about their dogs or their cats or their kids, or they like to kayak. So one of their kayaking trips, they'll tell their audience about that. So it doesn't have to be complicated. We often overcomplicate these things. Even just a quick note and a thought that you had that you can then relate back to something in your business and something that you do.
That's interesting because I carry a notebook around with me all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly like, every time I have an idea, I write it down. And then it goes nowhere because I think like you were saying, like you overthink things, you overcomplicate things. I'm like, why would I post that? Like, why would I put that in social media or a newsletter? And I like the idea of when you're saying like writing a letter to a friend. That's something I definitely want to try to start using.
Yeah. As humans, we're a collection of stories, a collection of experiences. Especially after the pandemic, we were locked in and we didn't have any connection for, almost a year. Things have changed in the marketing world. People don't buy from big companies now. They buy from other people. They want to know that there's a person behind the company. They want to have that personal connection. And that's how you create connection, is by sharing who you are on a human level. So yeah, those fantastic ideas that you jot down in your notebook, the inspiration you get standing in line at the bank, those little random thoughts. I have a notepad on my phone, and the little random thoughts that pop into my head, I note them down and then I tell them to my people.
Oh, I love that. I feel like many of our listeners right now, especially ones that, again, that resonate on my side of things, where I do work from home. I don't go into an office. So like my stories are very limited, or they may start to feel monotonous. Like I wake up, I get my kids ready, I may go walk around the track and listen to a podcast or something. And then I come here and I'm sitting at my desk. So like looking or discovering stories to share with everyday experiences, to me, may be a little bit more difficult. But like you're saying, standing in line at the bank, what do you observe? So like, how have you, I guess, shifted your view or mindset of even looking for those inspirational stories to share with your friends / audience?
My kids are neurospicy, so they're crazy. So it's never a dull moment in my house. So I talk a lot about my kids and about my cats, because my cats are crazy too. But also when I'm out in the wild, I'll give an example. I was out just running some errands and I wanted to get a cup of tea. So my gut instinct is to go through a drive-through at our local coffee shop. But the lineup was really long, so I decided to go inside because I didn't want to wait in this giant long lineup.
I resonate with that so much.
Right? And inside, there was nobody inside. Like I was in and out in like 3 minutes, and the van that I would have been behind in the lineup hadn't even gotten up to the speaker to order yet. So like normally that's just something that happened, but I was able to take that experience and turn that into a newsletter. So like just little random things that might happen to you while you're out and about, like running your errands. Oh, so I'm a nerd, hence the nerdy Quill. So I lean hard into pop culture. So I take a lot of my inspiration from TV and movies. What can the entertainment that I consume teach us about newsletters and mindset and marketing? So depending on where your interests lie. So maybe you bake, or maybe if you work from home, you have a family and you do a lot of cooking. What can cooking teach you about what your business is? There's little things. So you don't exist in a bubble, right? You do things. There are things in your life. So what about your interests and the things that happen outside of work? Even if you do work from home and you don't go out very much, because like I don't like going out very much. That's why I work from home.
I resonate with that as well.
I don't like leaving the house. That's why I have a work from home job. But like, what's going on in your life outside of work that you can like pull from? Does that make sense?
So much inspiration here, because when I'm writing something, because I listen to a lot of music and I watch a lot of movies, that's like my interest. So like, there are times when I try to figure out like, how does this relate? But then I'm like, no, like that sounds stupid. But you know what? Who cares? Like the relatable, creating that connection, like we've mentioned, is important to your audience. You know, they want to get to know you. And for people that are listening right now, don't overthink it. Like we were talking about, just go ahead and just do it.
Absolutely. Like, what would you say to a friend? How would you talk to your friend? I talk to my friends about what I do, about writing newsletters. I think that most of us at some point have had conversations with our friends about what we do for a living, right? About our businesses. And those conversations we can have with our newsletter subscribers. So if you're telling someone about a client you had or about an experience that you've had to do with your business, you can tell that to your newsletter subscribers. So yeah, we tend to overthink things a lot.
Yeah.
But we don't need to overthink it. We can just pretend you're telling a friend a story, and that's your newsletter.
Hey there, listeners. Ever feel like you're struggling to connect with customers or lead your team effectively? That's where soft skills come in.
Entrepreneur Encounter isn't just another podcast. We're a community dedicated to helping early stage entrepreneurs like you master the soft skills that make or break a business.
Technical skills are important, but without communication, collaboration, and confidence, your business might never get off the ground to the next level.
In our membership, Dana and I share actionable insights and tips to help you nurture the soft skills you need to thrive.
Give you access to bonus content, workshops, and a network of like-minded entrepreneurs who are all on the same journey.
We'll teach you how to boost your confidence,
Become a leader who inspires and motivates your team,
navigate conflict like a pro,
to resolve disagreements without drama and build stronger relationships,
communicate clearly and concisely, get your message across, build trust, and close the deal.
If you're ready to take your business to the next level, join the circle by clicking the link in the show notes.
So from one nerdy person to another, I watch movies, but I could never quote them ever. But I'm a big D&D person, or for those that are not in the know, Dungeons and Dragons. I've always been hesitant about sharing my nerdy side in my business up until my rebrand at the end of last year. Like I even brought my giant magical bag of dice to be used in my branding images, which was so scary and like nerve-wracking. But I want to work with a certain type of people. I want to keep getting the wrong person if I don't share genuine information about myself. Like, what am I interested in? To like magnetize their interest and pull them in. Because weddings and D&D, like I love those offbeat brides and couples and planners that like push the limits of design concepts and figuring out how to tie that in with storytelling. I think by playing D&D, I do look for stories everywhere because I'm like, oh, that'd be great for a character arc or something. Even if it is something as simple as going to the grocery store and watching my children potentially act as wild animals down the aisles. But then taking that experience and putting it into like Pinterest and like visual storytelling and getting compelling keywords that pull everybody in, like it all kind of wraps together.
Absolutely. The number one thing is if you're not being authentic to your subscribers in your newsletter and to your people, they can tell, which is why you have to be very careful if you're using AI to help you write, because if you're not going through and editing, if you're having AI help you write, it's not the be all end all. You do have to go in and edit because you're not being authentic to your people. They can tell. And like you were saying, you were having a question about leaning into your nerd until your rebrand. If there is an aspect about you that you are afraid to share, you may not be drawing in the people that you want to work with. You do want to be drawing in the people you want to work with. If you're sharing something that is authentic to yourself and someone doesn't like it, they're not your people anyway. So it's important to be sharing who you are to your audience.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. When we're talking about like being yourself and showing up as who you are, I know this is not emails, but last month or so, I recently started creating reels on Instagram. I was just like, who cares? And I know that like when I talk, I make really weird facial expressions sometimes, and going back and like watching them. And when I choose the cover photo, if you go look at my Instagram, the faces I'm making, but that's who I am. Like in conversation, everything is in my face. And I think to me, I'm like looking at it, I'm all like, this is funny. I don't care what people think. I'm just going to post it.
Amazing.
So people see who I am.
Yeah.
Versus just a standard graphic to post.
I love it.
I love it because I'm all about action steps. So what are 3 key takeaways for action steps our listeners can implement like immediately in their newsletters to reach that goal of being more storytelling and providing value versus the fear of sounding salesy?
Okay, so the number one thing is to not overthink it and to just do it. The best time to start your newsletter is last week because everybody should have a newsletter. And the way to start your newsletter is to just start. Just sit down and get started. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be short. It just depends on how you write. Just do it. The best way to start your newsletter is with the welcome sequence because you wouldn't want to invite somebody over and then not open the door. And that's kind of what happens if you have a lead magnet and then no nurture sequence. So yeah, 3 action steps. There is only one action step. Just sit down and do it.
Seems so simple.
Right?
As business owners, we overthink things so much. It's hard not to because you want to make sure that you're doing things right. But how would you know if you don't do it?
Yeah. You can sit down and brainstorm like 5 things that are important for your audience to know about your business. Then 3 things that you like to talk about in general to do with your life that you don't mind sharing publicly. Those are the topics that you're going to talk about in your newsletter. Then as you're going through your life day to day, if something pops in your head, if you see something out in the wild that reminds you of any of those 8 things, jot it down in a notepad. Then when it comes to time to write your newsletter, then you're going to talk about one of those things. And if you can combine like personal thing you're going to talk about and relate it back to a business thing, bonus.
That's awesome. I'm inspired.
I love it.
I'm super inspired right now. I hope that everybody else that's listening is inspired too, just to start your newsletter and just, have fun with it.
I mean, the worst thing is someone's going to open it and not do anything, but then you can take that data and tweak it. Is my thoughts, I guess, at this point. Just have fun with it and see what happens.
Absolutely. Storytelling is not like once upon a time. Storytelling is like, oh yeah, so my kid got married last month. It was super cool. And she wore great big combat boots with her wedding dress. And that was awesome. Like, I just told you a story, right? So how can we relate that back to newsletters? I can't do it off the top of my head, but that's an example. And I literally wrote that in a newsletter a couple of weeks ago.
I love it. Thank you for sharing these tips. And honestly, just that showing how easy it is to put together the story. And now you have something to run with and work with. And you could probably even break that down into multiple newsletters if you needed to, because one, a wedding has many moving parts. So that in itself, I think me and Sarah are definitely inspired on tweaking our newsletters a little bit and making sure there's more stories and like resonation. I don't even know if that's a word. I think I just made that up. But for those that are interested and would love to learn more about their Nerdy Quill services and how they can work with you directly, how can our listeners find you?
So my website is thenerdyquill.ca. I'm at The Nerdy Quill on Facebook and Instagram, but caveat, I am a newsletter specialist and I do not social media very well. I also have a freebie, and I think that will be helpful for coming up with ideas. It's a content creation freebie, and it will help you to brainstorm ideas that you can talk about. about your business, about personal things that you can tell stories about, as well as other things your people might want to hear from you that may not be directly related to your business or to your personal life, but other interesting things.
I love it.
Well, thank you again, Sarah, for being on our show today. And as always, all the information is going to be in our show notes. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.